Okay, so today we have identified a skills gap, and our skills gap is rolling a matte finish paint. So you typically in your training you've been rolling with low sheen and semi-gloss, which is most common throughout most houses. So today I'm going to teach you how to roll matte. Matte is the difference between matte, low sheen, semi-gloss and gloss is matte is the sheen level. So if you come over here, you can see where I've cut in previously. If you look down the wall using the light, can you see how it's a flat sort of finish? So it's not at all shiny. So with a low sheen finish, it's a little bit shinier than that. Semi-gloss is shinier yet again, and then gloss is incredibly shiny. So on the back of the tin, it will also have, under the product guide, it has matte, low sheen, semi-gloss and gloss. This is called the sheen indicator. So if you're ever unsure of what sheen a tin of paint is, usually it will say it on the front of the tin. So as you can read there, see matte. Otherwise you can go to the product guide on the back and it will let you know. And on the product guide, if you can see there, there is the sheen indicator bar. So that's where matte sits on the level of sheen. So that's our tin of paint. That's the product we'll be using today. So I have previously cut in because I want to get your rolling experience up with that. So with matte, because it dries super quick, being a flat paint, you have to work quite quick with it. So even though it's got very low sheen, you can still see tram lines quite easily because it dries so quick. So that's why there is a bit of a technique to paint with rolling with matte paints. So we'll get your paint out. I've already got a pot, but I'll get you to open the tin. The tin's already opened, so I'll get you to open that up. Yep. And then give it a stir for me. So there you go. Excellent. Shouldn't need too much. I'll get my brush. I'll let you wipe the, yep. Excellent. I'll take that for you. Okay, do you want to pour that tin of paint into your tray? You'll need about 1 litre to 2 litres. And getting your brush ready before you pour.
Specifically measured or just?
Not specifically, no, that's fine, just on a rough estimation. And then we'll wipe this up with the tin. Excellent. Great. I'll take that now. Okay. Now, when rolling with matte, it is even more important that we start from one side, keeping one wet edge. So what I mean by a wet edge, so if you come over here, what I mean by a wet edge is meaning that you've only got one edge that you're continuing on with. So if you were to start rolling, I'll give you a demonstration with a dry roller with no paint on it. If you were to start rolling here on the wall, you would have 2 wet edges. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So the reason why we start from one side, it doesn't matter what side, it's whatever your preference is. You can start from this side and roll. Are you left or right-handed?
Right-handed.
Right-handed. So you'll probably find it easy to go left to right. So sort of like writing. So I would start from this corner here. And if you start from the corner, as you can see, that's the finishing edge. So therefore you've only got one wet edge. So that's great. So what you'll do now, you'll dip the roller just like when you roll with low sheen, but you want to really watch the edges of your roller sleeve, that they don't gather too much paint. So off you go. So start dipping. Try and get even coverage, don't roll too fast. Yep. Excellent. Excellent. So as you can see, you did fantastic there. You kept the bearings all clean. You kept that edge also clean, so well done. And there's a nice even coverage on the entire roller. Well done. So now, following that one wet edge principle, start from the very corner. Now, when you're rolling, it's imperative that you don't start off right in the edge. Do you know why we would do that?
Because otherwise you'll get a tram line, a thick amount of paint here on the corner.
Brilliant, that's correct. So you don't want a big excess of paint there because there's no room to work it out.
Yeah. So
you start off, normally I use my cutting in as a guide. So I'll normally start off away from the wall and then you can work your way in. So this is the first dip, so it might need a bit more paint on it eventually because it's still absorbing that paint. So off you go. Excellent.
yeah, it's going to be.
Gonna need more paint. That's great. So as you can see here, you made the adjustment, so you can see how it's leaving little dry patches. So that's just where it hasn't quite soaked into the roller sleeve. Yeah, probably dip it even a little bit more if you like. Yeah. Excellent. Going backwards. Excellent. Okay, off you go. And keep continuing to roll down there. Yep. Excellent. You're maintaining that one wet edge. Brilliant.
I'm still trying to understand one wet edge. So you don't go the normal W pattern?
No, you can do the W pattern, that's correct. So what I meant by, so I'll explain a bit clearer. So see how now, you've only got this side that's drying, right? So this side here is drying. So I'll show you an example. This is the wrong way to take. If I was to start in the middle of the wall, see what's happening now? Now I've got this wet edge and this wet edge. So now what's happening is that you've got to roll all of this quickly, but meanwhile this joining mark, this is drying as well. So you see what's happening? So if I was to start over here, the problem is I have to work very quick to get all of this rolled, but meanwhile I'll have a join mark or a lap mark, some people call them a lap mark. So that being said, we'll keep rolling because matte paint does dry very, very quick. So with matte paint you have to lay it off as you go. Yep. Excellent, go right down to the bottom. Yep. And then come back up close to the PowerPoint or the GPO. Yep. Excellent, come back down. Brilliant. And you can see how it's starting to break now. So now you'll want to load up again. Excellent. So you can see what's happening now where we did the two red edges. See what's happening? So this side's drying and this side's drying. So you have to work quite quick. Luckily we're indoors today, so it is very helpful. It doesn't dry as quick, but if you were outside where it's windy or a hot sun, you would have some serious issues. So when you have a dry roller, then you can work around the GPOs. Yep. Beautiful laying off technique. Well done. Excellent. Alright, so now before you re-dip, you're going to turn your roller over and then roll in between, just like what you do with lotion, getting very close to hide the cutting in. Yep. And now along the top as well. You can flip it back over that way if you want. Yep, so that way. Yep. And that way you can get nice and close. Yep. Both your edges. Excellent. And then you can play off. Yep. And around this last stitch, you might as well finish that bit off there and then reload. Excellent. Now just like this, can you see over here? There's just a little bit of a tram line there, so you just want to dry roll over that. So start from when you're laying off, start from the middle, work your way up to the top, back down, all the way down. And that way, you don't get any join marks in the middle as well. And one here as well, the flower here as well. One middle, work your way up. Yep, all the way down to the bottom of the video. Yep, and finish there. Excellent. So now reload.
It left it with the original blue.
That's fine. This is the first coat, so it doesn't matter. You will need at least two. I'd say at least one to two more coats to get the proper coverage. So that's fine. Because we're going on such a bright colour, that will happen. So, excellent. And maintaining that overlap is fantastic, what you did there. So usually I like to overlap about 1/3 or a quarter for existing paint. The reason why I do that is so that you get that even coverage. You don't get any dry patches. So well done. That's good how you're using the light. I can see you using the light to see if you've got any tram lines. That's good. Now and then lay off and then redip. That's good. See, now we've got one wet edge again. So it's a lot easier to manage if you've got. Now before you dip though, do you want to dry roll around this power box, the glitter box? And that way you've got the nice finish and it hides the coming in finish. Beautiful. Now just go down the side and then be underneath and then you can continue rolling. Okay, so you're going to be careful there. So what you did, you went up on an angle because you're too tall. No, that's all right. Sometimes instead of going on an angle and approaching it like that, it's easier to come straight on with it because that will keep the roller level. So if you come straight on, you can make it a bit easier like that, just to control it. There you go. Okay, fantastic. That's fine. There's tape on that, so it doesn't matter. We put tape on that previously. I think we'll get some more paint for you. Okay, we'll just keep these drop sheets back against the wall. That's that.
Drywall here?
I wouldn't worry too much here because there's actually going to be an architrave going on here, so that doesn't matter. If there was already an architrave, you would then roll horizontally with the architrave. So before you dip again, I would finish up here. That way you're keeping that one wet edge again, keeping that straight line. Excellent. Yep. And then lay off vertically. Yep. Turn your roller around because of your bearing edge. So your bearing edge has to be your leading edge and the non-bearing edge has to be your trailing. So do you understand why we do that? Why your bearing edge is always your leading edge? Because naturally when you're rolling, there's always going to be more force put on the bearing edge side than the non-bearing edge side. So with that, because you're pressing harder on this side, it's going to squeeze more paint out, so it's more likely to leave a tram line. Where this side that doesn't have as much force won't squeeze, so it's more likely to have less pressure. So that's why we always leave that as our leading edge and our trailing edge and our leading edge.
I see.
Yep.
Do they have some rollers that have two?
Yep. 100%. Yeah, they're called a caged roller. They're predominantly used for ceilings. Because they're quite a large roller. They're usually, I think they're about 300 mil long. They hold a lot of paint, they're incredibly heavy, but they're fantastic for quickly rolling a ceiling. So, and also because it's a ceiling, it actually works out better because it's even pressure on each side. Yeah. And ceiling paint is flat paint, so it dries even quicker than matte paint. So that's why you've got to work extremely quickly with that. So that's where that comes in handy. Now, You want to roll above here, but you don't want to put too much paint on. Do you know why we wouldn't put too much paint on up here?
Because it's so close to the edges that you'll get tram ones?
Yep, and too much paint product. Because it's such a small area that needs to be covered, it doesn't need a lot of product. So if you're going to dip that, I would just use what's left on the base of the tray. This is the platform of the tray.
I see.
Yep, so just use that to load your roller up, and that won't overload it. So we'll move your tray forward so you don't trip over it. So starting from there, so I would roll. I'll give you a demonstration just quickly. Start right in the middle and do like a little jiggle with it. So go all the way along. So if you want to continue doing that and then lay it up. So just do a little jiggle, keep moving, right. Yep. So they're like mini little V pattern or W pattern, whatever you want to call it. Keep moving. Excellent. And now you can lay it off. So now keeping that bearing edge in mind, laying off from up, just up and down. Yep. Beautiful. And remembering to keep that quarter lap, so you probably want about 1 to 2 inches of lap or overlap. Fantastic, well done. Excellent. Right. Okay, so now you can reload your roller and continue rolling flat from your edge that's drawing over there. So now if I'm going to be critical on you, which I will be, so I noticed you started right on the edge of where you were. So now if you come over here, you can use the light. Can you see how there's a bit of a big ridge of paint there? And you've already laid this bit off. So the problem with doing that is because this is already drying, so now you have to lay it off again. So you started right on the edge like that. So remember, it's a bit like a corner. So remember I said stay out from it so you don't get too much paint build up. So that's where you would start about 1 inch away from the target and then come over to it like that. Because now you're going to have to lay off here. So I'll do that for you. Just because it's okay because we're inside, but if you're outside, you wouldn't be able to lay that off because it would pull the paint back up on itself and it would cause a massive tram line. So there you go, I'll let you lay that off. Yep. Alright, so that's alright. So just use the edge of your roller to just build that a little bit. There you go. Yep. And now lay off. Pull your pants up. There you go. Camera didn't need to see that. There we go. Alrighty. Brilliant. So remember, once you load that roller up, about 1 inch away from your finish, from your edge. Yep, probably go out a little bit wider. Yep, just. Yep. Brilliant. Now come back and lay off. Well done. Very good. Nice and even and consistent. Well done. So whilst you've got a dry roller, you can roll down this edge here just to help yourself. Makes it a bit easier. Well done. Brilliant. Yep. Dip your roller again. It's not critical, but it is just helps, especially if you're painting outside in the sun. The reason why I start in the middle and work my way up, laying off, I just find it helps it be a bit more even, and that way it's, because sometimes when you land in the middle you can get a big thick bit of paint. So if you start laying off and you hit the roller at the top, roll down, you're not going to go back over it, so you'll have that hit of paint. Whereas if you hit in the middle, roll up and then lay off down, you're going back over where you hit, where you started off from, if that makes sense. Whilst you've got a dry roller, I would roll around the GPO. Yep. Good. And turn your roller. Yep. Just to get that there. Well done. And one last dip, I reckon, and you've rolled it all. Well done. Good how you flipped your roller around, so that way you can get in closer to the wall without having the bearing or the edge of the frame here. Yep. Well done, very well done. Alright, so now that you've finished rolling that, it's a good practice to always check over your work. So if you come down this side, because the natural light's streaming in this way, and I would look along your wall and you can see if there's any tram lines or places you've missed. But looking at that, that is perfect, so well done. So that is how you apply a matte paint by a roller onto a surface. Well done.